What should you expect if you're transitioning from big law to in-house work? When you're in big law, dealing with grueling hours, demanding clients, and intense pressure to meet your billable targets, obtaining an in-house position is widely considered the dream. The common perception is if you can pay your dues for a few years at the firm and pay down your debts, you'll be able to manage the likely trade off of a lower salary in exchange for more predictable hours, vacation days that you can actually enjoy, and generalized freedom from billable hour misery. Now, as someone who spent about 5 years in big law, then went in house for about 7 years, only to then become one of those rare birds that actually return to the law firm life, I want you to know that there's more to it than that. I don't regret my time in house at all, or at least not most of it. Candidly, I did drag out my departure for a year or two longer than I probably should have, which is a tale for another day. But there are things that I wish I had known beforehand about the transition, which I'm going to share with you today. First, let's talk about diverse, sophisticated clientele versus a single client focus. The difference in client interactions was actually one of the most jarring changes for me, and there are really two prongs to that. Now, obviously, in big law, your corporate clients have deep pockets and they're paying your firm a lot of money to handle novel, complex, high stakes issues. And there are a lot of different clients, at least compared to your in house total of exactly one client. Now, that was expected. What I hadn't considered was that in big law, you typically only deal with C suite and VP level decision makers, people with at least a decade or two of experience who have risen to positions of significant responsibility because, at least usually, they are quite bright and very good at what they do. They're often strategic thinkers, they understand risk reward calculations, and they're comfortable with legal concepts and jargon. Once you're in house, you will be interacting with a much broader range of experiences, education, and expertise, to say nothing about the many different personality types. Not everyone will have an advanced degree, and not everyone's communication style will match what you're used to. This can actually be difficult to adapt to, but you absolutely must remember to treat everyone with respect and not condescension or annoyance, even when a legal concept seems very simple to you and you've explained it to this entry level marketing assistant 3 times already, and she's still just not getting it. When the business side stakeholders are afraid to come to you with questions because they're afraid that you'll yell at them, or you'll get irritated by the interruption, or you treat their confusion with derision, you're not doing your job right. And it's going to cause problems for the company long term because problems that could have been rectified immediately will be hidden from you and left to fester and spread. So if you know that working with people who aren't what you'd consider sophisticated, it's going to grate at your nerves, you need to inquire about who your internal clients will be during your job interviews and consider reevaluating the appeal of an in-house position accordingly. So this leads to number two, which is more operational and business focus. Now, the reason you'll be dealing with more personality types is because there's going to be more of an operational and business focus to your work. In big law, most of your role has probably been to focus strictly on the legal aspects of an issue, whether you're advising on a high-level strategy or narrowly defined matters, but without getting heavily involved in the execution, at least in most circumstances. Once you're in-house, you'll be expected to balance legal issues with business priorities. You're expected to provide practical, actionable advice and to find legal solutions that align with the business unit's goals. Legal risks are weighed against business outcomes, and you may find yourself advising on areas beyond traditional legal boundaries. And if you are constantly telling the business units no without offering them practical solutions or alternatives, your career is going to stagnate. If you're interested in business operations and different subject matters like marketing, PR, HR, and product development, this is super cool. But if you don't care about that kind of stuff, if you're a lawyer and you just want to focus on the law, you may find yourself frustrated, like you're wasting your time on low-value tasks. Let's move on to number three, the role of a specialist versus a generalist. So in big law, you focus on a single practice area like M&A, tax, or intellectual property law, and you develop deep expertise in a certain narrow topic. Oftentimes, the most successful big law lawyers are known for their subspecialty within an already limited practice group. That is, they aren't just an ERISA employee benefits lawyer, but they have a national reputation for their expertise in 401k plan compliance and corrections specifically. Once you move in-house, you can expect that to change pretty drastically. Smaller companies often have only one or two lawyers as full-time staff, and they're expected to handle everything from contracts to employment issues to regulatory compliance to intellectual property protections themselves. There isn't a senior partner supervising you or a lawyer in another practice area whose office is just a quick elevator ride 2 floors up. If you don't know something, you have to figure it out as you go. Now, in larger companies, there is more specialization and hierarchy, but even then, you'll be surprised how business needs will require you to jump into a brand new subject matter on a moment's notice from time to time. In my opinion, this dynamic is a godsend. No matter how much of a star you were in big law, the fact that you'll have to broaden your subject matter expertise once you're in-house helps to ensure that you keep learning and that you're challenged across different disciplines. It's a nice counterbalance to the fact that a lot of legal tasks that you're now expected to accomplish are relatively mundane compared to what you'd be doing in big law. All right, number 4, turnaround time and content of work product. So the turnaround time and content of your work product is going to shift notably. Of course, in big law, everyone knows that client demands can be unreasonable, and you might be expected to work overnight to get a project done. But the projects themselves typically require in-depth research and careful legal analysis, and turnaround time is allocated accordingly, even if it is at the expense of your social life or your mental health. Plus, most important work is reviewed by a partner or a counsel, or at least a senior associate, before it's sent to the client. Once you're in-house, the dynamic changes. Many stakeholders don't want well-researched explanations. They just want some actionable answer and they want it right freaking now. This was one of the things that I absolutely abhorred while I was in-house. I was actually given feedback by a higher up that I'd be better off just making up answers or giving my best guess when asked a question during a meeting, and then send a follow-up email later on if it turned out I was wrong, rather than just propose that I look into the issue promptly after the meeting and follow up with written advice that same day. Even if that meant that I give shitty, uninformed advice and the business unit stakeholders would act on that, and then they'd have to waste time undoing whatever they'd done in the interim based on my original misguided blather. So nothing there was worse than saying, I don't know, let me find out. Some people might thrive that way, but it was my personal nightmare. All right, number 5, pointless meetings. So let's stick with the topic of counterproductive and otherwise useless meetings. Does your big law practice group have a weekly 60-minute team-wide check-in that you're expected to attend and you loathe it because it's an hour of sunk time that could be spent billing and not listening to some clown-ass second year act like he saved the client's company because he got the signature pages in order during a deal closing? Well, once you go in-house, get ready for 3 or 4 of these asinine meetings every single day. You'll ostensibly be there to provide a legal perspective, sometimes because there is an item with a potential legal implication on the agenda, but more often, just in case a legal issue arises. If you're working remotely, you can flick your camera off and go fold laundry or do some push-ups or scream into a pillow while this is happening. But if you're required to actually be in the room, good luck. When you are sitting in your 4th pointless meeting of the day, your mind wandering, you might find yourself reflecting that if these people actually had to pay you the $800 an hour that you used to command in big law, they probably would not be wasting your time with this nonsense. Maybe right now you think it could be nice to just zone out, and maybe that's true every once in a while, but big law drills productivity into you, and these meetings are the antithesis of that. It can be a tough adjustment. All right, and finally, number 6, company politics and career progression. This is a case of picking your poison. Law firms are hierarchical, and the pathway for advancement from associate to partner is well established. Bill a shit ton of hours, Originate a few clients of your own. Don't piss off the partners, including, of course, by accidentally being a race or sexual orientation or gender that they don't like, and you'll probably stay on the partnership track. The pressure to bill hours can be exhausting, and if the rainmaker partner pushes his work to his little pet associate instead of you, you might be out of luck. But at least their expectations are relatively clear, even if not practical to achieve. For better or worse, in house careers are an entirely different animal. You're not just subject to the whims of your practice group leader and the firm's managing partner anymore. Now you'll need to navigate internal company politics and manage relationships across many different departments, many of which are staffed by people who perceive legal as an obstacle to their decisions and goals. The path to career advancement can be less structured, with promotions often dependent on internal politics, company performance, and overall business needs. There's typically less focus on traditional legal metrics and more on your ability to align with business goals, manage relationships and teams, build trust with the right people, and add value beyond just legal expertise. These are all definitely true skills, just not ones typically taught in law school or valued all that much in big law. But if they're skills that align with your innate interpersonal strengths and you're willing to learn and improve, you can find great success. Okay, in the interest of wrapping up this video somewhat timely, I'll limit myself to those big 6 considerations. And your experience may vary depending on your particular company's culture. Indeed, that's another difference that I could have listed. While big law firms tend to share cultural traits like high performance, prestige orientation, and competitiveness, company cultures can vary dramatically depending on the industry and the specific organization. Some companies may have a relaxed entrepreneurial culture, while others are more bureaucratic or conservative, and your culture shock from the transition may vary accordingly. Fellow lawyers, if you've made the transition from big law to an in-house position, what pleasant and unpleasant surprises have you encountered?